be naked and unafraid.
Wow.
Glory to God. Do you guys see David? God is our David.
Yes.
God is our David. And David actually speaks prophetically of Emmanuel. It speaks prophetically of God with us. Because David speaks prophetically of Jesus, and Jesus is Emmanuel, God with us. And so God is our David. And our Goliath was sin and death. And sin and death was laying bare our nakedness. It was pointing at our nakedness and our inability, and it was telling us that we were not the children of God. It was pointing at our nakedness and our inability, and it was telling us that God had forsaken us, that we weren't the children of God. It was telling us that God had left us as orphans and they were beaten and bloodied in the road. It was telling us, if you really are the children of God, then use your ability and clothe yourself. That's our Goliath. Well, Jesus comes, and where does he meet our Goliath? Where was Goliath's head buried? Golgotha, the place of the skull. Where was Jesus crucified? Golgotha, the place of the skull. Where did Jesus come to slay our giant? The cross, on the hill of Calvary. What was our Goliath? What was our giant? The giant was our sin and our death, mocking us, filling us with fear and shame. And Jesus comes as God to be with us as our David. And he comes and says, who is this uncircumcised serpent? Speaking against my people. And then he doesn't pick up the sword to slay our Goliath. Notice when Peter picked up the sword and tried to chop off the ear. That was like Peter trying to give Jesus the armor to conquer our Goliath. And Jesus picks his ear up and takes it and sticks it back on his head and said, he who tries to find life by the sword will actually find death from the sword, because the sword represents the strength of man, and the strength of man can never give life.
Right.
And so then Jesus comes as our David, full of grace and truth. And just like David slew Goliath with grace, Jesus slew our sin and our death with grace.
Right.
He didn't lift one finger. He rested on the cross and he absorbed our sin and our death into himself, and he swallowed it.